toast pressing. A little bit different one today. This is my new 2024 Ford F-150 Lightning Flash. Obviously, electric vehicles in general, pretty controversial topic. Not going to get into the politics of any of those things, as people probably know. This is, you know, just by virtue of watching my channel, you probably know that I'm not some EV fanatic just based on the vehicles that I've owned, but I think that this is a very interesting vehicle for daily use. I'm going to give you some of my first impressions of the F-150 Lightning. This is actually my second one. I had one a couple years ago. I actually didn't feature it on the channel. I had it for a very short period of time. I ended up buying that vehicle just because it sort of came, it was a canceled order and I wanted to try it. Actually really liked it, did not keep it long, but I ended up selling it, making some money on it. But I'm back in F-150 Lightning, obviously. This is a lease. I'll talk about some of the finances surrounding it, why I think it's a good place to put your money. I think if you just need a daily driver that's usable and kind of ticks a lot of different boxes. Talk about, well, what is this new F-150 Lightning Flash? This is the new trim level for 2024. When the Lightning was first released, and it was a 2022 model, there was the Pro, which is sort of the work truck. There's the XLT standard range battery, then there's the extended range, and there's a Lariat standard and a Lariat extended, and there's the Platinum trim. And they just added this Flash trim for 2024. So what is the Flash trim? In my opinion, not just from a place of bias, but I think that this is the one to buy in the lineup. It sits, Ford says that it sits between XLT and Lariat. You can kind of see in the seats here, this actually has cloth seats, they're heated. But what you do is you get the extended range battery, you get the bigger 15.5-inch screen up here, get the better looking wheels, black Ford emblem on the front, so you get sort of that appearance package. In Tech Pack, there's the Bang & Olufsen sound system too. It's the upgraded sound. So you really have everything that you want in the Lightning without stretching to that $90,000 Platinum, which I think is kind of a ripoff for what you get. I also like the cloth seat option of the Lightning, believe it or not, because I think that Ford, this is sort of a generalization, the leather seats I think tend to crease pretty quickly, so I actually preferred the cloth, and that was one of the reasons why I went for this trim level. But the Flash, 320-mile EPA estimated range. I'll get into some of the likes and dislikes of the truck later, as I do with all my videos, but the 320 is definitely pushing it. Your real world, you're probably not going to see that. That's a lot. That's one of, I think, a lot of people's complaints about EVs in general, is that the quoted range, you know, you never really seem to be able to achieve that in real world use, especially in a trailer and things like that. I saw a statistic the other day, and frankly this does apply to me, that a lot of people that own pickup trucks don't actually use them for truck stuff. And what is truck stuff? It's, you know, hauling things, towing a trailer and things like that. I have a jet ski. I may hook up a small trailer to this maybe 2-3 times a year, but that's about it. I really just bought this as sort of a daily usable vehicle with a lot of performance. You know, at my house and stuff, I like to do odds and ends jobs, Home Depot, things like that. So I'll definitely throw some things in the bed, but this is not going to be on tow duty like a lot of people might use at a construction site and things like that. So just getting that out of the way. F-150 Lightning, what's it like to drive? You know, there's a lot of reviews out there of this truck. The answer, it drives fantastic, actually. I think it weighs about 1,000 pounds more than a combustion engine F-150, around 6,500 pound curb weight. Your standard Lariat F-150 EcoBoost weighs somewhere in the range between 5,000 and 5,500 pounds. Again, 1,000 pounds more, but this Lightning handles much better than those combustion engine F-150s, and I think that that's greatly attributable to, number one, the center of gravity. You have the big battery pack that sits in the middle of the truck, so you have much better weight distribution. It's also an all-wheel drive system, has torque vectoring and things like that. So this thing really does rip. It's surprising. And much like, you know, pretty much every EV on the market, you have that instant torque fill, which basically allows you to destroy anything at a stoplight next to you. 580 horsepower in the extended range battery trims. That's across all trim levels. They have the extended battery like this Flash, whether it's XLT, Lariat, or Platinum. 580 horsepower, 775 pound-feet of torque, which is pretty crazy. It propels this thing, I think Car and Driver got it somewhere around 3.8 to 4.0 to 60, so It's very quick. And while that's impressive, the more impressive numbers are actually like the 50 to 70, your passing power range. I think this thing goes 50 to 70 in like under 2 seconds, which is just crazy for something that weighs 6,500 pounds. But what I notice and enjoy actually even more than the ease of the acceleration is actually how compliant this truck is. I'm out here in Livingston County, Michigan today, just driving along, and this is kind of a pretty lousy piece of road here, lots of cracks, lots of bumps, and this really soaks up the road well. It is pretty similar, and I think I want to say almost more compliant than the Defender V8 that I have, which is saying something. So what is compelling about the F-150 Lightning? I think first of all, just from a buyer's perspective, not necessarily me individually, the F-150 Lightning caters toward the buyer that is used to the pickup truck, you know, your standard gas-powered pickup truck, but is making that transition to an electric vehicle. My brother actually has an R1T right now. It's a dual motor performance, and that's a pretty quirky vehicle. I think that Rivians are fantastic in the road right now. It's a little bit different use case than this, but this is a full-size pickup truck. It feels and sort of looks tangentially like an ICE combustion engine F-150, and I think that that's what was Ford's formula when they were approaching developing this vehicle. They didn't want to come out with some outlandish vehicle that looked like a UFO or was something starkly different from what buyers were used to, and that's pretty clear when you approach this F-150 Lightning. Yes, it has some unique touches. I think it looks a little bit better personally than a standard F-150. You can tell that it's definitely got some quirks to it, and it's a little bit different, but the recipe is very similar, right? It's usable, it's comfortable, you can get your whole family in here if you like, you can use it as your daily driver, it's great in traffic, it can tow things. Granted, there's that range issue that I'll come to in a second, but it works very well as a daily usable truck, and that was what Ford's goal was, and I think that they nailed it pretty strongly. I'll show you, I'm just in normal mode right now in the Lightning. Just a turn stop on it. Oh, you can hear a little bit of the wheel squeal. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, that's 60. It is so fast, it's instant. But you're pretty much going to bury anything on the road next to you, save a 911 Turbo S. And you might say, oh, that gets old, that's every EV, but it is fun. It's actually a fun truck to drive despite the weight, like I said, just in normal mode, even going around the corners here. It feels very good and very balanced. Like I said, it has to do with that lower center of gravity because of where the battery sits in the midline of the truck here below. Much better weight distribution. The torque vectoring on the all-wheel drive system I think is tuned really well, so it's a very fun truck to drive. I decided to get this F-150 Lightning now just because of all the deals that are out on the market. This is a 2024 model. There are better deals that can even be had on existing remaining 2023s. I get the A-Plan code, which is basically the friends and family code that you can get from Ford. Plus there were some rebates and things. I'm paying under $700 per month, zero down, zero due at signing, not even the first month payment. I just paid for a new plate on this truck. This is an $80,000 pickup truck, so I'd say sub $700 per month for a lease, zero down. I think I got 12,000 miles a year. I think is a really good deal for a vehicle in this price range. If you shopped really hard, and I'm sure that there are some, you could probably get a little bit better deal than I did. But it was a really simple process. I got this truck where I got my Raptor R. Been dealing with my salesman there a long time, and they're really good to me. So I want to get into a little bit of the EV debate here, and I think it's kind of hard to own this truck without at least touching on it. You know, in the range issue, right? Number one, this is a very, in my opinion at least, some people may disagree, you can tell me in the comments, this is a very lifestyle dependent vehicle, and I think, at least in my opinion right now with the infrastructure and so on, this applies to all EVs in general. That's just my view on it. What do I mean by lifestyle dependent? First of all, me personally, I would not have one of these as my only vehicle. I'm blessed enough to have two other vehicles, two high performance vehicles as you've seen on the channel, possibly the Defender V8 and the Project 8. This is sort of that additional daily driver vehicle that I just decided to purchase because I thought the deals were good. And I wanted to have something that's more utilitarian, just to sort of kind of beat up on dirt roads and things like that around where I live. So that's why I got this truck. Number two, I have home charging capability. I have a fast charger at my house. It's easy. get home, plug it in, walk away, and forget about it. And I have 2 other cars that I can take out should I wish. Some people probably debate me on this and say, you know, there's 2 schools of thought to this, right? Some people, and I think rightfully so, would say that the charge network and things are not nearly developed as to where they should be. I don't want to take the time out of my day and sit there for, even at fast chargers, for up to an hour plus to charge my vehicle, right? And I totally see where that's coming from. I think the technology is going to get better and better, obviously, but if you have the proper home charger set up, this is a very easy vehicle to live with and use. Sort of a related point in terms of the ownership prospects. There's no maintenance that really has to be done with these. Here and there that people have had with sort of, at least on the early ones, some electronic issues, the 12-volt battery, shooting an error message, things like that. But you got to remember, and I don't think this is really talked about enough, there's no oil changes that have to be done on this. I think every 30,000 miles there might be some brake fluid and things that have to be done, but you don't really have to do anything. It's sort of a peace of mind ownership. They're easy to live with. Never have to go to a gas station, obviously. You just plug it in and charge it at your house. So I like that peace of mind that comes with that and the ease of use. I think another factor that people have to consider, you know, obviously, that's why I said lifestyle dependent, is, you know, what's your job situation, how far are you going to be commuting, things like that. I work from home at least 95% of the time. I'm blessed enough to do that. So I'm not doing that 50 to 60 mile commute per day. I think on average in the United States, the average worker's commute is about 60 miles round trip. And I'm lucky enough that I don't really have to do that very much. So that's another reason why this truck makes sense for me. So I think it's time to talk about some of the positive and negative of the F-150 Lightning, starting with some of the negatives. First off, I'm just looking at this big center stack screen. It kind of looks like a, you know, this vertical iPad that's shoved in there. And granted, it has a lot of good information on it. It's a clear display, easy to view everything as you're driving, but again, it is distracting. You know, there's not very many physical buttons. Everything's on this screen. If I want to change my AC or my temperature, I have to go into a menu, then out pops another menu, then I gotta go up and down, etc. It's just very dangerous. I don't know what the push is with all this stuff. I think that they're pushing all of us to this autonomous driving idea, which I'm not too crazy about, but again, you got to take your eyes off the road to do all these things, and I don't like that very much. Number 2, relatedly to the screen, I'm not really that crazy about the software. Like I mentioned, my brother has an R1T, the Rivian, and I think it's much easier to sort of get in that, plug and play, and you kind of become more quickly acclimated to the software in the Rivian as opposed to this F-150 Lightning. There's a lot of different menus, drop-down menus, and there's sub-menus. So again, I've only had this truck for a couple days, so I know I'll get used to it. But you just got to go into a lot of different things to find specific items. Like, for example, turning off the automated emergency braking. I'm not even going to try it right now, but you have to go into vehicle, and then there's safety systems, and then there's turn off emergency braking. So there's like 3 different steps just to turn off one little item. You have to do this for multiple different things. I wanted to turn off my auto high beam assist too. I didn't want that on. So then that was another menu that I had to go in. So it took me a good 15-20 minutes to set all that up. The good thing is that it does stay off once it's off, other than collision assist, which I believe on every 2024 model is on standard from a regulatory standpoint. But the good thing is they did make it easy to turn off. It's one of the first menus that pops up on the screen when you turn the truck on. Is it asks you pre-collision assist, and you can hit on or off, and you do that very, very quickly. So that was good that Ford thought of that. But again, so some of the confusing things with the menu. And number 3 is the big one. Ranking them in order of importance, this really should be number 1, and it is the range situation. And it doesn't have to do with me specifically, but it has to do with sort of this general EV environment, and it's the difference between real world range and quoted EPA range. And the fact of the matter is that they're not even close. I was just reading, I think, Car and Driver's conclusion on this. They tested an F-150 Lightning Platinum, which is rated somewhere around 300 to 310 mile EPA estimate. And they got it 75 miles an hour, only 230 miles. I mean, that is a significant drop. That's well over, I think that's between 20 and 30% drop, right? That's absurd for something where you're paying $90,000+ for your pickup truck, and you're losing between 20 to 30% of your quoted range from the factory. That's not right, right? And obviously the technology will continue to improve, range will get better and better, but I don't like the deception in general, and this isn't necessarily a complaint specific to the F-150 Lightning, but I do not like the deception that they're pushing on consumers about this quoted range versus real world range. Not had this Lightning long enough to really do a long-term test of that to see what I'm getting, but based on the Lightning that I had a couple years ago, and this was actually in the dead of winter, there was a significant drop in the range, and so that's a big negative. And it reminds me, one of the other features of the Flash does have a heat pump on this 2024 model, so the range will be improved in the winter, which is a good thing. Moving on to the likes of the F-150 Lightning. Number one like, I just like the convenience of being able to plug this in, walk away from it, go to bed, wake up in the morning, and it's ready to go. Right? You can set your charge time. You can, there's a departure time feature in the Ford app, which is really good, where it can precondition the vehicle for you, and it will get you up to your specific charge at the time that you wish. Yeah, the number two like with the Lightning, other than just the ease of use, is obviously the way it drives and the performance. I mean, you just stick it in there and just stomp it down. I mean, it's unbelievable how quick this thing is. Gets up to speed so fast, the passing power is great. It's a wonderful mile muncher, you know, putting aside maybe your range anxiety issues, but it is a great vehicle for even long road trips. You can fit a lot of gear in here. The back seats fold up. There's a lockbox in here. There's a ton of storage everywhere. You can fit just gallons of liquids. Wherever you look, there's some pocket to put something. So that's nice. It's very roomy in here. I'm 6'1", you have tons of room. Really comfortable, nicely bolstered, and a center console here. So it's a very nice place to be. It's relaxing. I like the fact that, you know, being an EV, you don't have the hum of the motor, but it's a very comfortable place to sit in traffic. I think it's just a very good overall comprehensive package. So I like it a lot so far. And again, I think the value is very good if you shop around, you're smart about it, and you can get good lease deals on these things. I guess a little bit of buyer advice. I personally would not finance an EV vehicle just because of first of all, the fact that the technology is just so rapidly increasing. I wouldn't want to be stuck with my pants down when, you know, battery technology is going to get better and better and better. But, and then number two is the depreciation, right? At least right now, EVs, Taycans, Mercedes EQ, Lightning, whatever, they're absolute bricks depreciation-wise. Pull off the lot with a Taycan, I mean, you're going to be losing $60,000. I encourage you, if you're looking for a new daily driver, whether it's a truck or really even just a highway muncher, I think that the F-150 is a very compelling choice. It's big, obviously, but you know, we live in America, right? You got to have that big old truck to move people out of the left lane, remind people of their lane discipline now. But I really like the time that I've had with the F-150 Lightning so far. I did a 3-year lease on it, so I'm going to have this thing for quite a while. And it's going to be interesting to see what they produce in the future and how their Ford will continue to improve upon what I think is already a very good product. But they definitely need to focus on obviously the quoted range versus real world range dilemma. And that goes for really all the EV manufacturers and pushers. I think that I think a lot more people would end up getting on board with that into the future once they become a little bit more genuine with those numbers and continue to refine the product more and more. So, sort of my first impressions of the F-150 Lightning. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please like and subscribe. Again, you're watching the PCAF. I'm your host, Preston. Thanks very much, and we'll see you in the next video.